on my mind a lot. Don't need no time watch. I don't know how I got you in my pocket spot. Yeah, that's babe, miss you every day. You like my oxygen. Make it seem like the barging down. Got my heart no barging in. From the bed to the floor to the couch. Might wake the neighbors up. Break you in and break you out. In the end, we're gonna make.
Hi, Dionna. Welcome back. Another episode of All Time High. There is so much going on. It's amazing.
Yeah. Isn't there always?
There is. It just seems like more than typical. You know, last week we were waiting for the final results of the Sam Bankman-Fried trial, his sentencing. What was kind of your take on what transpired?
Oh, we got 25 years and it's just so hard, right? Like, what is he really going to end up doing? He's probably going to get some appeals. Who knows? Maybe he ends up serving like 5 years, but it's a message that you're sending to the rest of the industry, right? So now you kind of just told everybody, hey, if you lose $8 billion, maybe you're going to end up serving like 5 years in jail. And I think that they lost the incentive that would deter people from actually doing those things and probably enhance the likelihood it's going to happen. It's just bad for the industry.
Meaning you think people would say, that's worth the risk, right?
Yeah.
First off, you may or may not get caught. Second, you may or may not serve the complete amount of time. I don't know if there's eligibility for parole with this particular sentencing or not. But if you remember in our last episode, our live episode, I said that the range of sentencing can be from 6 years to 100 years. And that I wasn't trying to tell you that it was going to be one way or the other, but I thought that it would be closer to 6 because of all the periphery, because of all the things going on around. And so 25 is not quite 6. I mean, that's 4 times as much, but certainly it leaned to being more lenient than it did to being more strenuous. Right?
Yeah. Actually it was funny because when we texted, you were like, oh, right up the middle. And I was like, yeah, pretty much. They just even right down the street. Does it feel like a lot of our justice system is taking that route these days where it's not like over one way or the other? It's like right up the middle for people who probably should get a lot worse punishments. I think the biggest issue is like you look at somebody like Ross Ulbricht, right? And he did Silk Road and got it. Everybody says it was so bad because they had like murder for hires and you could buy hookers and you could get guns and like it was a no holds barred, right? But he's serving 3 consecutive life service sentences and all he had was a website, It's just the hypocrisy is insane. And I don't think that they did a justice to deterring people from acting like that in this industry.
So in this closeout edition, in just a moment at the end, we're going to take a look at some of the dominoes that haven't fallen related to the activities that transpired. But I think we're probably at a good point. We want to take a look at one of the comments made from the All In podcast. It's one of those great shows. I'm going to bring up 2 of the different people. The first one is going to be from the host, Jason Kalkanis. And I'm going to play this one. And let's take a look at what he said. Kaplan, in this case, if you can see the screen, is actually the judge.
Judge Lewis Kaplan said SBF had lied throughout the trial and showed no remorse. Quote, he knew it was wrong. He knew it was criminal. He regrets that he made a very bad bet about the likelihood of getting caught, but he is not going to admit a thing, as is his right. In related news, FTX is also selling the majority of its stake in Anthropic for $884 million to Mubadala, one of the sovereign wealth.
So I think the key there, right, is the judge recognized, and you recognize, that he doesn't feel like he did anything wrong. He just got caught in the middle of a bad bet.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. Of course you did something wrong. If you build a trap door in the software that only your other company has access to and nobody else does, and they can make bets that nobody else can make bets on, and they can use customers' funds, when you specifically tell customers you're not doing that, you are not making a bad bet, you are doing fraud. I'm just saying.
So let's take a look at one more piece of the puzzle. Another comment from one of the group in the All In podcast. I'm going to share the screen here.
That's the thing. It's like I get it, these young kids, but if you're going to do the role, you got to learn the job.
Fair enough.
CEO is the most important role in the company. You should know. You should know better. Period.
Check out this hot opinion.
Was, I think, as good as any of these trading platforms. So the crazy part of this is, I'd say, unlike the Madoff case, where from the beginning with Madoff, it was entirely a Ponzi scheme. There was nothing of value there. In this case, you had a, call it legitimate or semi-legitimate crypto platform combined with some legitimate angel investments. And so what I think went wrong here was Alameda, that Sam decided to siphon off customer deposits to gamble with his hedge fund, which was completely optional. He didn't need to do that. I mean, he already had a winning business and winning bets in his portfolio. So this whole Alameda thing, he didn't need to get into. And then, of course, siphoning off customer deposits to spray around for political donations to feel like you're a big shot was also really stupid.
You are right over the target, Dionna. I mean, come on.
It's just dumb. It's just that there's you know what I mean? Nobody's that ignorant that they don't realize that those aren't legal things. You might not be putting it all together. You might be betting you're not going to get caught, or you might be betting that it's not going to get bad, but
Yeah, you're not even, you're like, this is just silliness now.
This is what you see with these young crypto billionaires, though, right? Like they don't have the business background. They don't understand the legal ethics and the things, the way companies should be run, the things that you have to maintain, the books that you have to keep, the checks and balances that have to be in place, the responsibility that you have to have when you're handling somebody else's money. All those things need to be in play, and when they're not, you end up with this, and it's criminal. That's why it's against the law.
Fair enough. So to take this full circle, one of the things in the trial, the Department of Justice waived their case because by their indications, there wasn't a need for it to actually, the sanctions couldn't be any higher than what the sanctions were. But there's a school of thought out there that part of the reason the DOJ waived this was because there were implications for political donations. A lot of the money that Sam was playing with, we can all say that this all went to Alameda, but it also went to political concerns. He had access to people and things that crypto companies have been fighting for, paying for, doing everything they can, but somehow couldn't get there. Yet he was able to get there.
Yep. Yeah, and you also wonder too, what was he? Because at one point there was this whole thing about how money's moving around and donations that are taken and being sent to other countries to fund these wars and things that are going on, and the government and FTX, and there was all these little parts going around. He had the political protection. He's got the connections. He's part of the establishment. He was essentially, I feel like, a fall guy for them. Like, hey, we're going to use your business to do this. And,
Tell me he wasn't the patsy. Tell me.
I think he was the patsy.
And so I'm sharing now with you a tweet from John Deaton. And he's, I think, important, and this is really a lot to digest. But I'm going to break it down into bite-sized chunks.
Okay.
And as we look at it, know that right now, Deaton is running against Senator Elizabeth Warren. Okay. And you're saying, how does this all tie back to FTX? First off, Deaton is a lawyer. Second off, he has represented different cryptocurrencies from Ethereum to XRP in different cases. And so he is really trying to take on the system. Who's to say how far he goes, but he's certainly not afraid of one of the most longstanding senators out there. So if you cut through all the stuff, the reason he gave the money from FTX, according to evidence, was in order to buy access. And I've watched Deaton enough to know that when he puts that in quotes, I mean, that's quite literally what the intent was for the money. And it worked. He met with Gary Gensler, right? He met with Maxine Waters. He met with different people. Are you trying to be on either side of the aisle here? I'm not. I'm just looking at it from political. Okay.
Yep. Choose my battles. This is not one of them.
Fair enough. And so you see Warren talking, and she's eloquent with her words. She's a great communicator, but she's putting this positioning out there that it's about terrorists and criminals. Yet Gensler testified before the Senate Banking Committee, and she didn't even ask a single question about how he had private meetings with SBF, and nobody else did, and that she's got an aggressive stance on crypto. So all these things are causing us to wonder, why did the DOJ not pursue it? I think we have the idea that different rules are being applied in Washington, D.C. Do as I say, not as I do.
Oh my God. Of course. What did you expect? Anything less?
No, it just makes you wonder, and maybe you see these things so clearly. Why is she being so aggressive against crypto, yet she's benefiting from it? Who's she holding out for? Who is she protecting? What is she driving?
Oh, come on. Well, I don't know if that I can get in the weeds of those specifics, but there's our other good friend, Mr. JP and or Jamie or
Jamie from JP. Yeah.
Morgan, I don't care, take your pick, but one of those guys, he takes the same thing. He says one thing one way, but yet he benefits from it in another way. So you get these like, people are more interested in sound bites. They're more interested in clickbait. They're more interested in the persona that they put forward. And that's like their character of who they are, but they're very different behind the scene and they do what serves them. So they say in the public what they think the public wants to hear or serves them publicly, but then they do what they want to do to serve themselves in the back end.
All right. So two more things, or two more people implicated in this whole FTX scenario beyond the sentencing. I don't think this goes anywhere. Like, I don't think this goes anywhere with DOJ and Elizabeth Warren. I think they truncated that conversation.
Yeah.
But what about Sam Bankman-Fried's parents? They received $10 million in FTX customer money. They have luxury real estate in their names, but have yet to face any charges. Do you think any charges are going to come against them?
No.
You ready for this?
Yeah. What a precedent that would set. The CEO takes the fall, period. Everybody else is just independent contractors, employees. They all work for the CEO. The CEO calls the shots. The board's supposed to direct the CEO. Shame on the board for not knowing better the state of the company. But the CEO, the buck stops there. So nope, it's on him.
You're okay with that then?
Yep.
Because I think that they helped orchestrate this thing. First off, I'll say that his mom runs a super PAC called Mind the Gap. Notice I left the party out of it. And that when Senator Warren, if you recall, she ran for president, and it was Sam Bankman-Fried's father, Joe Bankman, that set up the tax plan for the entity. He also set up the tax plan for the entity. I've got a screenshot. You ready for this?
Yeah.
This is the entity that was created to support Alameda, and FTX, not necessarily in that order. Pretty intricate, huh?
Yeah. Holy cow. And they had all these different sections, and you didn't know where any of the funds were.
And you wonder why, right? I mean, was it constructed to do what it was doing, to be able to prevent people from identifying where the money was at any given point in time?
Yeah. You know, it's dirty. It's dirty, but at the same time, like, the laws are written. People follow the way things are supposed to be. Like, it's meant to be confusing. This happens everywhere, I think. I think it's way more common than people think it is. You know what we just watched the other night? Have you seen the Octopus Murders yet? It's like an American. It's pretty interesting. It's about this like journalist who starts investigating. It's a computer program that the DOJ ends up in a lawsuit over because this company alleges that the DOJ stole the program from this company and gave it to somebody in an that was a friend of the administration. And that person went on to make millions and millions and millions, like so much money with that program. And the company ended up not ever getting anything out of it. So it ends up being this whole big gigantic, potentially big conspiracy of like just the dirtiness that the government does. And I think that's just how it is.
You don't think that was fiction? You think it was fact, huh?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's fact, but you have to just say, okay, that's possible. That could be true. That could be true. I mean, I think you got to not put yourself in a corner of like, unless you were there and and even then you should probably question it.
You're of the mindset innocent until proven guilty. So you're like, hey, if the parents provided fund, I guess where the problem comes in for me is the finances that were distributed to other people. Like there's no clawback provision.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the DOJ backed off. They were like, well, we don't want to too many tangled webs here that just lead us all back to the same place with government in the middle of FTX.
Yeah. Well, FTX lost $8 billion in customer funds, but it also at one point was valued at $32 billion, right? $36 billion, something like that.
It was 32 from what we read. Yeah.
It was operational. It did have profits. Like he went through tons. And so that $10 million could have been a profit from like a year. You know what I mean? Not all the money was necessarily like not legitimate, or not all the money was, there was profits. There was fees whenever people were trading. Like there was a lot of trades that were going through FTX. So but it's the neglect, and it's the mismanagement, and it's the thinking that you're not doing anything wrong when you're putting in trapdoors and letting your company have special privileges.
When you think the law doesn't apply to you. Well, did you see what happened to Elon Musk with Tesla and the $55 billion clawback?
No.
So the Tesla board sued their Delaware corporation.
Okay.
They sued Elon because the compensation package wasn't properly approved by and or disclosed to the board of directors. It was a comp package that he took before the pandemic. And he said, yes, I will take all of my compensation in variable terms.
Yeah.
All my compensation will be tied directly to stock. And all of the bonus structures will happen when we reach certain profit targets, reach certain revenue targets, things that people thought were impossible to happen. Yeah. Turned out he hit all three.
He did it. Yeah.
Yeah. And he got $55 billion.
Yep.
And the judge in Delaware decided whether or not the compensation package was fair. That was the standard of the law.
Yep.
And whether it had been approved by the board of directors properly. Well, the terms weren't disclosed. And so they said it was unfair because of the amount of money that he made. So now they're in a predicament where they have to go back and determine what a fair amount would be, even though it's in the past. And there's not many people that would have taken the risk. There's not many people that would have made it necessarily happen. Yeah. And you can't go back and recreate the time. And so let's say, Dionna, you get to be Elon for a second. Hey, Dionna, I got some good news and bad news. You thought you earned $55 billion, but we think what's fair is $30 billion. Are you good with $30 billion?
No.
Not if I had made $55 billion.
I mean, it's interesting. I did know this story, and I remember hearing another podcast actually talking about it. And when you do the math, the percentage of what the bonus is ends up being like a half or 1% or 5%, like something you would get as a normal commission for the value increase that he brought to the company. And it was like completely reasonable. I mean, because I think it ended up being like what? 500. I mean, what's a trillion? 500 billion? But like, you know what I mean? So if it's a 1% bonus, that's legit. I mean, that's.
And to that point, I would think the shareholder, ironically, who brought the suit didn't hold that much stock. He had the power because he didn't have a requirement, but he benefited or she benefited as the stock prices increased if they chose to liquidate the stock that they held. So it wasn't like the things that he was doing didn't benefit the shareholders. It did.
No, and don't underestimate too, Elon takes a political side. And so, you're seeing that there's this kind of weaponization of forces against both parties. And I think Elon's caught up in the middle of it because he publicly takes a side to a degree.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, we keep going back to this. Remember that chart we saw just a second ago?
Yeah.
You know who is the one guy, and it's not Elon, that saw through that chart and exploited that chart? No. Didn't matter the complexity. Do you know? You know. You've talked about it before. CZ. I mean.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Of course.
Like OG crypto saw right through it, recognized that they were out over their skis on the particular coin they had.
Yeah.
And.
Yeah. Well, no, it was Cointelegraph.
FTX coin or no? Cointelegraph?
No, I don't know. It was one of them. They're going to yell at me now that I can't think of the name of it, but they did an article. Somebody from FTX had actually leaked that FTX wasn't solvent, and it was because their books were so heavy on FTT token. And so there was an article that came out. CoinDesk did it. So CoinDesk puts out an article. CZ sees the article. He does a little bit of a deep dive, and then goes and says, "Hey, I'm going to sell my FTT token." And he was one of the second largest holder, I believe. He had like 2 million of them.
Do you think FTX token is a meme coin right now?
No, but it's definitely a coin.
I mean, check it out. It with a lot of different things are running, at this time. It had a moment in the sun way back in 21 at 73 per coin, and now it's running about $1.70. Although recently it got as high as $5. So not financial advice. Do your own research. I'm not going to buy any FTX coin, but I'm going to say this again. I have that unique ability to not predict the future, but depict the present. And as I watch the government be a little bit softer on FTX, and then talk about the money came back, right? All of a sudden the money came back because the market came back. Is it beyond anyone's belief system that the government wouldn't reinvent FTX in some way, shape, form, or fashion? You tell me.
Man, I don't think they can do it with SBF, but it doesn't mean they won't do it with somebody else.
Oh, I think that I would suggest as a marketer that they change the name. But I don't think they're going to change the location.
You would think.
But stay tuned, because the system that they set up works really effectively to help during an election year, right? Fund candidates who are on the precipice of being reelected or not reelected. So if ever there were an excuse for them to find a reason to do something similar here in the near term.
Oh, I got what you're saying. And they fund other countries that way too. So okay,
stay tuned.
I'm following what you're putting down here. I like it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I won't grab me a little bag of FTX token. I'm not saying it's the best thing, but it may not be the worst thing.
Hey, not your keys.
Not your keys, not your coin. Hey, Dionna, we're going to sign off on that. Thank you for another great episode.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You on my mind a lot. Don't need no time watch. I don't know how I got